won't see the backdoor in login.c, but if you look at source code of the compiler, then you still see the backdoor. What happens if you compile? You put the backdoor in the compiler so that when it compiles a clean compiler, it will add the backdoor in it. Then you cannot see there is a backdoor in the system. And the same problem applies to all kinds of software, interpreters, etc. IDS, that's intrusion detection system, is a security device, but you have to realize that it introduces new risks. In many cases, when we're doing a pen test, we managed to compromise a huge network just by compromising the machine on which the intrusion detection system was running. And you trust a lot of other software. Another interesting one is SSH. SSH is a secure shell protocol. It's a really good alternative to Telnet and other insecure protocol, because when you connect to administer a Unix machine, or even if using Sigwin, you can even use it to connect to Windows machine. Everything will be encrypted, there will be authentication, etc. In the mid-90s, some security researcher found a flaw that theoretically could introduce a man-in-the-middle attack. So they provided a patch, the patch was accepted, and every single installation of SSH upgraded to the next version. And what they didn't realize is that that patch introduces security vulnerability, the famous CRC32 DOS attack, that rendered every installation from 96.
It's about 96.
About 96 and 97, I wanted to check, until 2000, every installation of SSH were vulnerable to remote attack. Of course, not everyone had an exploit, but if I remember well, in teaser, we had the exploit for maybe 6 months, while people were still saying that the attack was not possible, was not exploitable. And then you trust mail clients, etc. That's a big problem we see at our customers. They spend a lot of money protecting the data center, the disaster recovery center, the core application, but they don't spend any money protecting the people that have legitimate access to it. So what happens if there's a vulnerability in the mail client of your system administrator or the people or your branch manager? Well, your whole network is compromised. You've probably seen Fabrice Mary talk, and you just need access to the application to do nasty things. Don't even need to hack it. Games. Who plays here World of Warcraft, for example? I mean,
oh, come on. You're not the only one who plays World of Warcraft. Come on, guys.
I know there's at least
Who plays
one.
WOW?
Who plays EVE Online?
Let's see it. Who plays EVE Online or WOW?
You know, like if you take World of Warcraft, for example, that software, they try to prevent cheaters from abusing the server. It's an online game. People play with thousands of other peoples. And so they implemented a bunch of spyware tools, and they look at everything you're doing on your machine and everything. They don't really respect your privacy, but as long as you want to play the game, you have to accept that. Now, core banking system. I did a talk 2 years ago about that, and it was quite interesting. We did a security assessment for AS400 core banking system, and we found a lot of problems. And a lot of problems were not located at the client, because most everything was outsourced to the vendors. To some IT outsourcing company that was managing the system, to IBM, and what we found was really interesting is that while we were doing the security assessment, there were people in development that were trying to erase loan files. So they just opened an account at the bank, asked for a loan, and after they tried to erase the loan. Also, what was funny is that some people tried to affect the Forex exchange rate by the Treasury Department was in another building. So if the network was too slow, then the Treasury Department won't be able to update the Forex rate in the core banking system. There was a lot of problems like that. One problem that we noticed also, that was funny, is that the developers, the vendor, had access to the production environment. And that, I mean, not only the developers and the vendors should not have access to production, they should have access only to development. And you have people in QA doing testing, and actually the people in QA, they only did the user acceptance test, they didn't look at the security or anything, so the developer could introduce backdoor in the production environment. But also, they had access to production. What was funny is that every time, like the national bank or the auditors from the Big Four, or even us, told them that they had to cut access to the production environment, then the balance of their accounts didn't match anymore. When we ask why, they say, oh, there's some bugs in the core banking software. If we don't have access to production, we cannot fix the data. So because the application was faulty, they had to fix the data manually on the production system. And this is not an isolated case. Actually, most of the people that are using Silver Lake, they have similar problem. This is just another example. A lot of people in our company use Mac machines. There's not a lot of software for doing like CRM. So a few months ago, we evaluated a software called Daylight for customer relationship management. And called Daylight. Daylight is a really nice piece of software. Actually, we're quite happy with the features it has and everything. But when we look at the security, we're a bit disappointed. They use another vendor to take care of that database backend, and the vendor is called OpenBase. So why OpenBase, not MySQL, not Postgres, or some other more popular database? I think they chose OpenBase because the user interface is really nice. It has like really nice management menu and everything. The problem is that, and actually there's a small, this is a quote from their website. They say, enhance security. OpenBase SQL has undergone a security audit that has led to improvement security in OpenBase 9.0. And when we were flying back with Fabrice and Radit, we were flying back from Surabaya. And I don't know, maybe we were bored. We took a look at the security of OpenBase and just see. This is I could do a demo. This is OpenISQL. It's the equivalent of the MySQL client or SQL Plus and Oracle. It lets you connect to the database directly without passing through the application. And this is remote vulnerability. You see dash login. You just replace it with a simple SQL injection. Code or 1=1 semicolon and password, you just put anything and you have access to the slide.
Just as a disclaimer, we did email Daylight several times about this vulnerability with zero reply.
And no answer.
So this is sort of a 0 day, but we have notified them.
We tried responsible disclosure and it didn't work. So.
You only attempt so much.
So see, LAMP security in the underlying database gives us access to Daylight username and password. And then you just have to do a select password from the user and you get all the clear text password from the Daylight database.
The second password, by the way, is not a very good password, so just...
That's cheaper.
Thanks, Jim. Let's go to the second one. This is a case study about financial consultants. I'd like to talk about this for a bit. First of all, let's talk about a little bit of a disclaimer here. See, Anthony and my talk are essentially about real-world scenarios for hacking trust, and I would suggest that you not try this yourself because you get in a bit of trouble. The reason that we know about them is because that they did get in a bit of trouble. But essentially, let's go ahead and look at this. You see, the issue is that computers and the internet or where the term, at least, pardon me for my ignorance if I'm wrong, but I believe it's where the term hacking evolved and came from. The issue is that this is not completely the case. You see, anything can be hacked, and when I say anything, I mean absolutely anything. You see, computers and the internet are merely a tool to be used. Indeed. As Anthony informs me, hacking used to mean cutting things in pieces, so it's not necessarily breaking into computers. So you can hack anything. You can hack someone's trust. You can hack their bank. You can hack their car, for God's sakes. You can hack anything you like. So let's start off with a couple of examples of maybe a bit different than Anthony's slide. Let's start with stockbrokers. Now. Many Americans, but I'm not sure some of the foreigners here, especially myself, who have heard of Ivan Boesky and Michael Milken. Now these guys were arrested in the 80s in the States, in the United States, for doing insider trading. Now insider trading is having insider information, as in confidential and protected information about a publicly traded on the stock exchange corporation that they should not have had, and they made money on that, whether the stock they knew was going to go up or they knew it was going to go down. There was no bet. They were not betting, they knew it. Now, these two gentlemen, especially Ivan Boesky particularly, they were not, that is one circle of trust. So you entrust them with your money, and then all of a sudden they get arrested, right? Well, that's not the end of it, folks. You see, they had quite a large circle of trust. Arthur Andersen, for that matter. Has anybody ever heard of the Big Five? The Big Five accounting firms, yes? They're not the Big Five anymore because of this. Excuse me, because of something that happened after this. But this is one of the reasons that the government started scrutinizing this. The SEC, it's called, the American government. This specifically is called Arthur Andersen and PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, are accounting firms that help these two brokers, Ivan Boesky and Michael Milken. There he is right there, Ivan Boesky. They help them shred various documents that would lead to either A, they had insider information, or B, that they were insiders in general. Like, you can't trade on a stock if you're an executive. So therefore, they hacked everybody's trust that was even connected with the company. You could be a computer consultant, minding your own business, and you say one day, hey, this company's pretty good, I like them, and you invest your money in them. All of a sudden, your trust is violated by a man that you have no idea about, that you've never heard of before, that you've had no contact with, and he's violated your trust because you entrusted in a system which at this point in time was flawed. Let's go to the reverse scenario, a stockbroker. Now, a stockbroker is a gentleman who invests your money for you in a particular stock. Now, this is quite interesting. How do you invest in a stock? Do you think that you walk up there and write a check to this gentleman so that you can invest money with him? You don't. You call him up and you say, I'd like today, and this is just for sake of argument, I'd like to buy 500 shares of company X, right? Technically, you haven't bought anything. The company that you're investing with, be it BCA or Morgan Stanley or Bank of Malaysia, any of these places that have trading on the international markets, any of these places, they're on the line, not you. They're on the line, not you. You buy these stocks up and they say, okay, no problem. So they buy these stocks up, and let's say the stock goes down and you're like, well, forget about that, I don't want to do that. These guys have taken my money and they solicited me out of it, and I don't want to pay. They did this without my permission. Guess what happens, guys? It's not your money on the line anymore. It's their money. And now they have to go to court and prove beyond the shadow of a doubt, in every country, they have to prove that you were the one who called them up and placed the order. Even if they can prove that you called, you just say, oh, yeah, it was a random call. I called to see how my other stocks were doing, not this one. You can abuse the network of trust on your personal broker. Please don't do this. Once again, I'm trying to give a disclaimer here. I'm not trying to attempt to tell people how to hack, but these are the types of network of trust that are in place. So this is quite an issue. Now let's go to accountants and CFOs. I'll be reasonably brief on this one, because everyone knows about this. Enron and WorldCom. I'm sure everybody in the room has heard about these two companies. This is quite easy. They abuse your trust by taking your money via the stock market, by taking your money via political contributions, by taking your money via their services, and they abuse your trust by rigging their balance sheets. They create a false corporation that holds all of their debt but none of their profit. Therefore, as soon as they post their profits to Wall Street, it looks like, my God, these people have done 25 billion in one quarter. They're the most profitable company in the entire world. Not quite. Their entire debt is 50 billion, not 25. They've actually lost $25 billion just by sitting there and just by exploiting your trust. So this is another one. And obviously the same thing with WorldCom. Now, one more I'd like to talk about real quick before we go to another one. Is mergers and acquisitions. Now, this is a particular case study that Balua had in front of it. Let's talk about mergers and acquisitions. Let's say you're going to merge company A with company B. Well, there's an interesting way to do that. You have to involve lawyers, you have to involve business development executives, you have to involve a number of people, but specifically, you have to involve banks and lawyers. They're always in the mix. And when you involve these two, you're trusting them with your security. And I specifically say that because we audited a company once where company A was reasonably secure. Company B was reasonably secure. Now the funny thing was, we asked if we could expand the audit to their partner. And the reason we asked that is because they were going through a merger. Their partner was their lawyer firm. They had every single bit of confidential information, including balance sheets, personnel information, everything you could possibly want. They had that all